with your host, Tyler Crane.
All right, we're back at you with Always Auburn, coming at you Thursday morning, and we're getting close. We're getting close to the weekend again, which means that your Auburn Tigers or Auburn Tigers have another opportunity to go put a big game time performance on the field to give us a chance to get our name really back in the national spotlight as a powerhouse, as a dominant program in the college football landscape. And we have a great opportunity coming up on the road this weekend in College Station. The number 9 Texas A&M Aggies are hot in pursuit of a great season, coming off a big win against the Fighting Irish 2 weeks ago. They entered a bye week last week and really probably got healthy, got a lot of the back to the fundamentals, back to the basics of football. So we definitely have a big, tall task at our hands this weekend going into College Station to face the Texas A&M Aggies. So with that being said, we're going to take a look at the Aggie offense, which is probably the biggest upside of their football team right now. They are tough. They are tough on offense. They throw a lot at you as far as formation and a lot of eye candy, a lot of motion coming across the formation to try to create matchups with these dynamic receivers that they have. And Auburn's defense is going to have a tough task. Now, is Auburn's defense better than Notre Dame's defense at this point in the season? I would be led to believe so. Now, nothing against Notre Dame. I'm not discrediting them whatsoever. They're led by a great coach in Marcus Freeman, who comes from a defensive background. He used to play linebacker at Ohio State, and he takes pride in putting good defense on the field. But Auburn's not giving up 41 points in a big game like Notre Dame's defense has, and doesn't have two losses in the loss column where Miami kind of had their way against their defense at the first game during the first game of the season, as well as Carson Beck was quite successful against Notre Dame's defense. So I believe Auburn's defense will give Notre Dame a harder time on their offensive side of the ball this week. But we're not going to take that lightly whatsoever. They are the real deal on offense. I'm almost led to believe, even with all the glory that we're hearing about John Mateer and Ben Arbuckle and their offense over there in Oklahoma, I'm almost led to believe that just from a pure just potential and talent standpoint, as far as just all across the field, I think that this Texas A&M has a lot more threats that we need to be aware of, that we have to be aware of to be successful on defense Saturday compared to what Oklahoma had. All Oklahoma really had was a good quarterback and some solid, probably average, higher end wide receivers. Texas A&M has elite NFL type receivers, and they have more than one of them too as well. And also, they're led by a quarterback who I think gets overlooked a little bit, especially at this point in his career. He's entering his sophomore season this year. Went through some struggles last year, but dealt with them and came out of it, kept his confidence, and really didn't put a terrible year on tape last year. As we can all remember, that Texas A&M was a contender as far as making it to the SEC title game last year, and Auburn almost, in a lot of ways, played spoiler alert with their hopes to make it to postseason play. And I think that's a big storyline as well, especially going back to College Station. Now, there was no guarantee that they would have beat Texas the next week and went into the SEC championship and possibly made a playoff run if they would not have lost to Auburn. But with all that being said, I think that the defeat that we gave them in Jordan-Hare Stadium last year kind of gave them that kick in the stomach, that gut shot that really took the drive and the motivation out of the Texas A&M team to really go into Texas with a lot more to play for, if that makes any sense. And they didn't have a very good performance against Texas. So now, what am I saying, that they would have beat Texas and went on? That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that if they would have beat Auburn, last year, and that was the stakes of that game. That the winner goes to the SEC championship. The winner has a great potential to make the postseason, make the playoffs. Then I believe that it would have been you would have seen a better performance out of A&M. There would have been a lot more for them to play for. I want to say so the revenge factor is definitely on the table. Mike Elko, I think we all remember his midweek address to the media that week last week or during the week of the Texas A&M game last year when he kind of overlooked Auburn, and that was pointed out. There's just a lot of things circulating around this game, but to get into A&M's offense, they're led by the offensive coordinator, Colin Klein. And a little bit about Colin Klein, he played quarterback at Kansas State, and so a Big 12 guy. He then became the quarterback coach at Kansas State and offensive coordinator, where he had success. You think about Kansas State's program, and that's middle of the level, top tier Big 12 type program. They play with a lot of pride over there. Big 12 offenses really pose the trademark of having air raid style offenses. They sling the ball around the field. The defenses in their league, they don't have there's not that just the outstanding threat of pass rush and getting to the quarterback in that league. So that really gives them the opportunity to have fun throwing the ball all over the field and racking up receiving yards and quarterback completion percentages and just all the stuff that goes into the passing game. So he's kind of brought that mentality into Texas A&M, I want to say, but at the same time, you got to remain balanced in the SEC. This is not the Big 12, and the running game has got to be emphasized to keep the defense honest. So, with that being said, I think those roots of what Klein has in the Big 12 and how he sees success on offense really still stays with him. But I think he goes against the script just a little bit to keep the defense balanced. But at the end of the day, kind of in the same way Freeze does, he wants to throw the football. He wants to get vertical, and he believes that his receivers and his quarterbacks are capable of making big plays, in which we have seen that so far this year. Texas A&M leads the nation in explosive plays. They have 30 plus plays over 20 yards out after the first 4 weeks, and they've only played 3 games. So after 3 games, they have 30 plus plays where they've gotten 20 yards or more, which is incredible. They have a receiver, Mario Cravers, it has almost 500 receiving yards. I think the actual stat is 443. He has 443 receiving yards on 20 receptions, 4 touchdowns, and he averages 22 yards per reception after 3 games. And one of those games was against a good defense in Notre Dame. So those are outstanding numbers. I mean, he leads I think when I did the research, there's a receiver at Colgate University who's a couple yards ahead of him. But in big time college football, that's not big time college football. In the Power Four college football, Mario Cravers separates himself in this category from Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman, the boy from Tennessee. I can't call his name, and I apologize for that. But just outstandingly, I mean, he leads by a number of yards, probably 50, 60, maybe more than that. That's just me speculating. But and then there's not too much of a fall off. Now he doesn't have nowhere near what the yardage that Cravers has, but KC Concepcion, he's up there. He's 13 receptions, 227 yards on the season, and he's averaging 18 yards per catch with 3 touchdowns. So they have people on the outside, not to mention Terry Bussey, who we all saw what he could do last year. He was a great player for them last year, wide receiver. Le'Veon Moss, I think their tailback, he's good at popping out of the backfield and catching the ball out of the backfield. And he's also kind of an underrated, after watching a lot of film on Texas A&M in that Notre Dame game, kind of an overrated just attribute of Le'Veon Moss's game is he's gotten very good at filling and what I mean by feeling is in pass protection and picking up the free guy. He's gotten very good at that, which that is a very underrated stat, or not a stat, but that's a very underrated part of offensive football, because if you can pick up that free man and give your quarterback that extra second or two, that free man 9 times out of 10 is coming from somewhere that they're actually probably needed in coverage. And so if they have the time where that man gets accounted for by the running back and he doesn't get home or affect the quarterback's throw at all, it can open up windows that gives these receivers, these big time receivers that Texas A&M have, the opportunity to rip off big plays, and like what we are seeing, they are leading the league and these big explosive plays. And am I saying that they're going to do that against Auburn? Not at all. But the defense has definitely got to be aware that this is what they want to do. Yeah, they're going to run the ball, because when you look at the stats, they're pretty balanced in the attempts to run the ball and the attempts to throw the ball. But don't get it twisted. Colin Klein, their offensive coordinator, has Big 12 roots, and he wants to get vertical with these big time receivers and let Marcel Reed just really give him a chance. And that's what he does. He's no he's no Tom Brady. He's not dropping the ball on a dime like Joe Burrow was. He None of that. I think Jackson Arnold has much more accuracy. I think a lot of quarterbacks in the SEC are a lot more accurate than Marcel Reed is. But the thing is, he plays with a sense of confidence, I feel like Marcel Reed does. And that's an overlooked a part of his game, too, that makes him very underrated. He doesn't care that he's not as accurate as some of these guys are, John Mateer, Arch Manning. He doesn't care. All he wants to do is give his receivers an opportunity to go up and make a big play. So he's going to rip it. He's going to rip it. He's going to put it up in the air. And they're teaching that to him. Something is clicking at A&M right now. It's clear that all you got to do, Marcel Reed, is stay in that pocket for a little while and let the receivers develop a little bit downfield and put it in the air. Find the matchup that favors us, usually single coverage, and put it up in the air. Let Concepcion or let Cravers or let Bussy go up and make a play for you. And 9 times out of 10, just like we have confidence in Cam Coleman going to make these plays, they also have the same type of confidence in their big time receivers to go make these plays. And they have two of them right now. Now I believe we have more than one as well, but they have two of them that are doing it consistently right now. We really only have one, and that's nobody's fault. It's just the way that things have been rolling so far this year, and I do think we'll come out of that. But at the same time, Texas A&M is showing you that it works, and they're working it. So they pose a threat. They pose a threat to make big plays on offense, and that is always something when you play in these type of games you have to be aware of and you have to contain, because it almost creates the perfect storm for a team to really get out of the game, to lose the game quick. Um, I do not think Auburn is the type of team yet that really has that ability to, when we're down 14, 21, 17, something along those multiple possessions. I do not think that we are really that team that can come back at this point, especially in the second half of ball games. So Auburn does not need to find themselves in these positions where Texas A&M busts out 3 or 4 just huge plays, 2, 3 play scoring drives where they eat up 75 yards in one play and score a touchdown in 2 minutes, and we find ourselves almost kind of like how Tennessee was doing Georgia, but Georgia had the ability to stay focused and stay grounded in that game and fight their way back in that game. We don't need to put ourselves in that type of position, especially on the road. That makes it even tougher. And that that is a point to really be concerned about if you're the defensive side of the football for Auburn, because this is what they want to do. This is what they've been doing, and if it wasn't for Notre Dame having a lot of success on offense as well, Texas A&M would have blown the doors off the Fighting Irish on the road a couple of weeks ago. So, man, it poses a lot to be aware of and a lot to keep in mind. A little bit more about Marcel Reed that I'm seeing is just the upside of him and the growth. Last year, and he still is quick to pull the ball down, but sometimes you see him in the back, and you'll probably see it Saturday. You'll see him in the pocket. He'll kind of get happy feet. You'll see his feet. It almost looks like terrible footwork, to tell you the truth, but it looks like he's just got a natural desire, want to, when the first read's not there, or it might take a little longer to develop, or that time clock starts rolling, clicking a little faster in his head, to pull the ball down and run. But instead, you're seeing him kind of bounce around a little bit. I saw that in the Notre Dame film, and that's almost telling me that they're coaching him to stop pulling the ball down and running. We don't want you getting hurt. We don't want you toting the ball 10, 15 times a game and going head up with these linebackers and these defensive backs who are looking to take your head off every time you try to run the ball. We want you to stay in the pocket and let these receivers get vertical and give them a shot. That's all we want you to do. And I think you're seeing that. Marcel Reed is getting better. He pulled the ball down a lot last year. He's not doing it as much this year. Now, is he a threat when he does? Extremely. He can take it to the house quick. I mean, he might be the most athletic quarterback in the SEC, to tell you the truth, as far as just pure running ability. I mean, he's got great speed and can take it up the sideline and be gone in an instant. So, but at the same time, he's keeping his eyes downfield. It's not just pull the ball down and run. And he's special when he gets outside of the pocket and makes throws. The game kind of comes to him. He reminds me a lot of Nick Marshall. Just he's not always accurate. It's not always just going to be perfect, but he doesn't panic. And the game kind of, when the game's moving and he's moving, it seems like that's when he's at his best. So I got a lot of respect for Marcel Reed, especially after what I saw him do on that last drive against Notre Dame. If you can remember, there was like a minute left in the game. Texas A&M, maybe more than that, but it's under 2 minutes. Texas A&M went down. They looked like the game could be over. Notre Dame could have won the game on defense that possession, and would have been ball game at the house. Texas A&M ran the kickoff back and got called for holding on that kickoff. I mean, this is on the road. This is everything. Like, took all the momentum away. You thought you just had a huge play. They called it back, brought it back to probably the 10-yard line, something along the lines of that. Marcel Reed, it didn't shake him, didn't flinch. Took the boys down the field. There was another penalty on that drive against them. Took the boys down the field, got all the way down to fourth down, and I mean, he got ice in his veins. And that is something we at Auburn so desperately need. So you're never out of a game with a quarterback like what Texas A&M has over there, and not to mention just all the talent that he has around him. So, their offensive line, they're decent, but at the same time, they're willing to sacrifice the flats. They're willing to sit their running backs and their tight ends in the interior to give Marcel Reed time with these other receivers. Ensuingly, what they're doing, they're taking an option that you have to, as a defense, be accountable for. So they're taking an option a lot of times out of the play with their running backs and their extra tight end, and not letting him run a route, but strictly keeping him within the interior to block and chip on the defensive lineman. So Marcel Reed does have a chance to get to one of these big time receivers down the field. That's how much confidence they have in him just putting the ball up and letting one of these receivers catch it. They're giving us an extra man, giving the defense an extra man in the secondary to not have to worry about especially in zone coverage, to not have to worry about his assignment, which are the flats. because they're not putting anybody out there. Though the people who are eligible to go to usually get in the flats, the wide receiver, the running backs and the tight ends, they're keeping them in to chip the defensive linemen, leaving the flats completely empty, letting our corners either get upfield to blitz the passer or whoever's in charge of the flats, linebackers, giving them the opportunity to get upfield and blitz the passer or drop back further and take away some of those windows that are in the deep corners and deep outs. So, what's that tell you? That tells you that they're willing to sacrifice that because they believe that their receivers and their quarterback who can get them the ball is better and is good enough for them to overlook that aspect of the game. So, got a little carried away about their offense. I like their offense. I like how it looks. I'm really. I hope. Of course, obviously, I hope we get in there and play well on defense and kind of handle Marcel Reed. But I like Marcel Reed. I like his game. I like his confidence. I like his demeanor. I like that he's not just perfect at every phase of the game, but that really doesn't impact his ability to go out there and perform on a very high level. So I think that speaks volumes about the young man, and I really admire him and just everything he's took so far at Texas A&M, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. So big ups to Marcel Reed, but we're coming in there this weekend. We're coming in there to give y'all's first loss, and hopefully you have a bad day against our defense, Marcel Reed. So and then go have a great rest of the season. So we'll be back later on. I got a special segment where we're going to look back in time, and we're also going to kind of look to the outside factors of what's going on around this game this week. So we'll catch you here in a little bit, and War Eagle.